Welcome, everybody, to Veteran Voice Radio. This is Don, and today we've got Brandon, who has finally made an episode with us. And our guest,
I wake up when I can. Shut up.
I hear you. You're definitely on retirement time. And so we also have a amazing guest. Mr. Brett Anderson has joined us today. How you doing, Brett?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, man. So I know we were having a good conversation before we started recording, but go ahead and tell everybody again what it is that brought you to the military.
Yeah, before the military, I was not military grade. I was a homeless, like drug dealer dude living in the crawl basement apartment complex. And then 9/11 comes around, and I realized that I could probably do something better with my life. And I actually tried to kind of half-assed as you were. I was going to do National Guard reserves. I was only going to do a little bit of service. I was not cut out for full service. Took some other tests, and they're like, hey, you could be military intelligence. And I looked at the recruiter. I was like, that sounds like a sweet pickup line, right? He's like, absolutely. You're going to get all the girls if you are in mine. So that was, recruiter line number one. So I ended up joining. I threw some airborne school on top of there. I ended up in the 82nd. I was a common ground station operator. I enjoyed it. I had fun. My first few years in the Army was standard 82nd paratrooper, running up and down Ardennes, calling my cadences, deploying out to Iraq in 2003 and a bunch of other stuff. And I just really enjoyed it. From there, I realized that as I got promoted, I got further away from doing my job. As soon as I made staff sergeant, it was like, oh, now you're just in charge of people who do the job. So I started putting together a warrant packet and was going to go warrant. And I ended up getting spotted and selected by a pretty awesome mission unit that pulled me in and just let me do my job for the next decade, just as an enlisted guy. I got to deploy a whole bunch with a bunch of awesome Americans and do some fantastic stuff all over the Middle East. And so I next thing I know, I'm just re-signing enlistment contracts left and right. I never meant to be a lifer, never meant to be a careerist. They just kept entertaining me. They kept paying me, which is also really cool for me and the family. And they gave me, a new job to do basically every 6 months or to a year or so. And just my ADD kind of really worked out that way. Next thing I know, it's 20 years and 11 days later. I joined the Army right after 9/11. August 14th of 21, I started my terminal leave. August 15th is when President Biden shut down Afghanistan. My career is the epicenter of the GWAT careerist. And ever since then, I've spent the last several years just trying to connect with veterans and help them transition, help them grow, help them to understand their place in civilian life. I still focus on the intel sector. I run an association now that helps intelligence professionals become online investigators and, find their next tradecraft. So, yeah, and down and dirty, that's kind of a quick story on how I got to where I am today.
So I would imagine that basic training and that was quite the wake up from what you were used to.
So it was, but I was so disappointed. I was part of those basic training classes where the drills were trying to figure out what a stress card was and how not to lay hands.
Oh, no.
And so when I walk into basic, I fully expect to have gorilla hands laid on me from day one. And I did. I'm an Anderson, so I'm at the front of the bay. I go run up the front of the bay. Next thing I know, that these loving, massive man hands grab me and remove me from this spot of floor that had some painting on it. And he politely held me against the wall, and he just gave me a nice little instructional block on what a dead zone is or a mural. And to this day, I do not step on murals in front of doorways. You got it on your rug, that's on you. I ain't stepping on it. I'm going to walk awkwardly around it. But I learned a very quick and easy lesson right then because I had those loving man hands holding me to that wall, instructing me. And then, unfortunately, that drill, not because of that incident, a couple hours, he got removed. And the rest of my basic training time, it was very soft. And I felt disappointed almost. I'm the youngest of three brothers. I'm used to taking it the hard way all through life so that you can have the easy path.
Yeah.
And so I was a little disappointed that my base training was a little softer. I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The hardest thing there was it was stupid cold. I went through a winter cycle being right after 9/11 and the coldest day of my life. I was in MOP 4 plus rain gear, plus winter gear, covering myself in mud, trying to stay warm through our FTX there at basic training. But yeah, the basic training is great crew, great team. And I started learning a lot and I started learning the military cycle. But yeah, I kind of wish it would have been harder, because later in my career, I went through SERE school, I went through Jump Master school and everything else. And I still say to this day, Jump Master school and SERE are the two best classes I've ever gone to, because they have a standard. Jump Master school, there's a standard. You pass it or you don't. And they're okay with having, high fail rates, because you're taking troops' lives in your hands when you throw them out the paratroop door there. So I really enjoyed Jump Master. I failed it the first time.
Most do.
I passed everything first time flying colors. I was getting cocky. I was getting arrogant. And then we get up in the door and we're starting to spot zones, and I'd never jumped door position in my life before. So I spent my whole first pass as a young jump master just staring out at the beautiful scenery, and completely missed my mark and failed my test. So I had to go through it again. But what it taught me is, like, there is such a thing as a standard in life, and it's okay to have a high standard if the stakes are high. And so that's kind of where all my military training started honing me to, is that, like, I like things when they're hard. I like to learn hard lessons in loving hands, rather than having to go learn a hard lesson from somebody who doesn't like me so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump Master school probably is the hardest school in the Army, by far. And again, SERE school as well, mentally, it's a great diet plan too, if you're trying to lose weight.
Yes, it is.
So
I had so many people tell me, like, false stories about SERE school, because, like, you don't want to, ruin it for everyone else coming around. But I got turned around one day, and I just gotten grilled and smacked around a little bit. And when I got turned around, I didn't even notice the American flag in the background. What I noticed was my then sergeant major standing front and center. And all I'm thinking is, like, this dude has been sneaking around smacking me when I wasn't looking. I thought he was one of my instructors. And so I about jumped over my whole formation and started pounding this dude. And then I saw the American flag behind. I was like, oh, exercise is over. Index. Okay, cool. Got it.
Roger that.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard somebody do that.
I was on the defense. I was ready to start swinging back. But
hey, I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. All the fun activities, listening to I don't know if they played it for y'all, babies crying and all that.
That's my favorite part. I just had triplets. I got an older daughter who's 22 now, and my triplets are 19 now. But back when I went through SERE school, my triplets were, I think they might have been a year, maybe 18 months. And so when they played the screaming baby music, like, I was like, oh, I'm back home. Give me my coffee can. I'm rolling up a pillow right here. I'm going to sleep. Like, it was cozy for me.
Yeah, there you go, man. There you go. Did it happen to be wintertime when you went to that too?
No, that one was definitely a hot time of year. I do remember that. And I went, I didn't go up in Spokane. I went another location. So cardboard little box out in the middle of some hot freaking woods in the southeast. Yeah.
I think I know where you went.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, great training the whole time I was in the military. I never expected to be a military dude. I attempted college as a music educator fresh out of high school, dropped out of that. Had a very brief marriage that probably wasn't the right time in my life. Ended up at the bottom doing drugs and just kind of hanging out, working in the mill, and literally lived in a crawl space of an apartment. Didn't have much of a goal or future in my life. It was funny at the time because me and my friends always talked about, honor, integrity, and how to live a good life and all that. And we weren't necessarily Christians at the time, but we did acknowledge there's greater powers out there to answer for. And it wasn't until the military came around in 9/11 that I figured that I actually need to do something to make this world a better place, not just sit around and talk about it with my friends. I had no idea what it meant to join the service. At the time, I was wholly against it. Nowadays, I'm a huge proponent of some sort of civil service right after high school, before finishing school, be it postman, EMT, firefighter, military, whatever it is. I wholly believe that if you don't spend a couple of years like learning how to serve your society, then you don't really know your society very well. So it definitely changed me in a lot of ways.
Well, and I read a quote the other day, and it was about anybody in public service. It says some people dream about being a hero, other people relive it in their nightmares.
Oh yeah, yeah. I completely stopped dreaming like years ago because it was just too annoying to dream. So I'd rather just kind of sleep without them these days.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
But here's the big thing about that: if you don't serve the community then you only know, let's say you're middle class, then you only know middle class. You don't know lower class. You don't know high class. You don't know the world. You know your view and what you were taught.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other part to that too is I do believe the reason why we are probably the best military in the world is because we're a volunteer military. However, for whatever reason, the good Lord out there decided to not give us brains when we had muscles and wait until the muscles deteriorated to give us the brains. So the military is a great place for somebody like myself that got out of high school and had no idea what being an adult was and what I'm going to do. And oh, by the way, I just got married and now I have to become an adult. And I think the military is a great place for us men that are in that brawn before brains.
It's the 3 basic lessons you always learn: right place, right time, right uniform. Like,
yeah,
if you figure out those 3 things, life gets a whole lot easier.
Yeah. You look left and right, man. If you don't look like the guy to your left or the guy to your right, you were wrong.
Yeah. So,
yep, absolutely.
And understanding that servant heart is what's kind of driven me since I've been in the military. I really contemplated, like, I was one of those dudes that did my 20. I was like, okay, I've checked my box. I've now served. I'm good. I can go back to doing whatever I was doing. But I kept having this feeling of hunger that I still wasn't doing enough. And that's why I joined the American Legion now. I do a lot of veteran group stuff, and I work with my Intel Association, Osmosis, to help people transition. Because once you get ingrained, once you honestly get that fuel and that adrenaline kick from being useful and helping the world become a better place, like you don't turn it off. You keep driving for that stuff. When I got out, I talked to a couple of my Intel buddies, and I was like, hey, what do you do for that kick? Because, I mean, when you're people hunting terrorists for a living, you get that adrenaline kick and get used to it. And so I asked a couple of my buddies, like, what are you doing to stay sharp? And they said, we're doing counter sex trafficking. I was like, all right, that sounds cool. What are we talking, like Europe or Africa, South America? And they're like, no, Colorado, Atlanta. I had no idea how bad my own backyard had gotten over the course of 20 years of being over the pond. It's actually pretty frustrating when I started looking into it to see how bad our own backyard had gotten.
Right.
And I am a devout Christian, and there is such a thing as a mission field. And what I learned is I don't have to travel the world to find a quality mission field. There's mission field literally right out my back door, around my streets, around my schools and churches that I can divest myself into for the next several years and be perfectly happy about it. So,
and see, here's a big thing people don't know about where Brett and I live. We're in South Carolina, and we're right there at Interstate 85. And if you listen to any kind of rap, you've heard Interstate 85 mentioned. And it is one of the largest trafficking corridors because it goes between Atlanta and Charlotte.
Yep.
Who knew? I live in the mountains back here. No, I don't know.
Takes them from Texas, Florida through Atlanta, then all the way up that East Coast belt line up in DC and on. So it's a massive corridor for everything, for human trafficking, for drugs, narcotics. Like, there's just so much that can go on in the Southeast here. And there's a lot of help that gets needed for it. I've found groups that do great at identify and interdict on the sexual trafficking side. I've found groups that do great on the recovery and housing and stuff like that. And there's no shortage. Like, if you're trying to help someone, literally all you got to do is throw up a red flare on Facebook or something, say, how can I help my community? And you'll find a dozen nonprofits that you can join up and get involved with it, kind of fit your needs and your flair. And that's why I like the American Legion. Like, they're all over the place. When I was looking at veteran groups to join, and I didn't live on post for the first, like, 3/4 of my career. I was an off-post guy hanging out with the Special Forces crews, and we didn't really associate with the on-post communities. But my last few years in the Army, bouncing around as a first sergeant, I lived on post, and I got very invested in the on-post lifestyle and the communities. And my family and I we loved that personality. Like, you don't have to come home and explain to someone or go to church and explain to someone why your spouse isn't there on a Sunday because they're off training or they're deployed or whatever. Like, when you leave that military community, and I heard it early on in my time in a local Baptist church, someone was saying that their husband was out of town for the weekend visiting their mom, and they didn't know how they'd survive because it's the longest they'd ever been apart. And I'm just like, that's great. I'm really glad you've never spent more than 2 days apart from your spouse. And I don't want to, like, wish ill on anyone, but it's hard to kind of close that gap socially when you're trying to make connections. So
Right.
Yeah.
And so I looked for a veteran group in my area that I could hang out with. And I looked at VFW and I looked at Legion and a few others. There were plenty out there. I'm a motorcycle rider too, and American Legion has a riders group, and so it just kind of drew me in to hang out at the local post and just start riding bikes with the other veterans. And we've got a canteen that's open 7 days a week, so you can hop in there and just socialize, hang out with other veterans, families, and people who just kind of understand sacrifices and stuff like that. So that's why I chose the American Legion over others to start diving into. And just like everything else, like in the military, us leaders come in and we start just leading stuff. And I ended up being commander of the post, like just 3 years in or something like that. So now I got find guys like Brandon, and I start dragging them around by the collar and be like, help me revitalize it. Let's get some younger guys in here. And,
I think that's a big key, right? Is when everybody gets out of the military, the first thing they think they want to do is get as far away from it as they can, right? And then the part that they don't count on is the fact that they have lost their identity. They're no longer in charge. They're no longer the top guy. They're no longer responsible for things, and that kind of spirals the depression and stuff coming, because it is completely different out here than we experienced or what we thought the grass on the other side was. And I think it's important if there was a way that veterans could find that sense of volunteering and serving earlier, there would be less of that 22 a day. Because a lot of people find their passion and their place in that role.
Yeah, and I see a lot of vets that instead of diving into an established group, they stand up their own. That's almost a problem of ours now, is because we're such a motivated generation who understands technology. It's almost easier for us to stand up a new nonprofit than to go into a nonprofit that's got some issues and try to clean things up. And it's nothing against them. But then when I'm talking to benefactors who want to donate, and I'm talking to vets who are trying to get help, the laundry list of phone numbers you have to call to find housing for a homeless veteran, it's insane.
Yeah.
I'm glad there are 100 of them on the list, but I kind of miss the days where I just picked up one phone number and got a house for a vet and moved on to the next vet. So it's almost like we've diluted the ability to truly focus support to our vets, because we want to get out. And I had a sergeant major mentor of mine talk to me about identity when I was leaving. He's like, you got to understand, you're no longer First Sergeant Anderson. And we kind of forget that we wear our name, we wear our paycheck on our chest.
Yeah.
On fancy days, we wear like our whole military history and our ORB or ERB on our chest. We don't have to say who we are. When we walk in a room, our uniform says who we are and what we've done. And so we don't have to worry about that. I think fortunate for me, I was in a civilian closed unit for most of my career. And so I had to learn those techniques of, like, I don't need to walk in a room and say who I am. I can just sit down and start being who I am. And that's going to find me a place in that organization. And fortunately, it generally helps me rise to the top of organizations. Now I run massive projects for groups. I run entire companies for groups. I run associations. I run businesses for entrepreneurs and help them achieve their goals, just like a first sergeant helps his commander achieve his goals. Fortunately, I had that sterile time in the military, but I've definitely seen a lot of guys that even a couple years after that, they're still using their title. If I'm, first sergeant retired, or I'm colonel retired or whatever. And not that you didn't earn it, but it had an expiration date. Now you got to go back to just being who the military taught you how to be, and then find that home for who you are now.
I think, and I do, like I said, I think the volunteering side is a great place, just like you said. Unfortunately, everybody has started their own, and there tends to be that no, we don't want to work with anybody else kind of mentality in the nonprofit world. But you're 100% correct, and I feel the same way about the VA. I think the VA would be a great roadmap tool. They come in, they do the initial assessment, find out what the problems are, and then move you to a department that's not part of the VA that handles that specific thing. And then it would become more streamlined. We'd be dealing with professionals that do the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would help out tremendously. The best alternative to that would be reaching out for some of these nonprofits, these mom and pop nonprofits that specialize in one thing and work them with the VA. Because then you get the care and the relationship as well, because most of them are veterans or understand the veteran mindset as well.
I mean, that layout would work. Unfortunately, the vast rate of turnover at the VA will not allow for that that bond to be formed or that trust. Like I use 70% of mine disability is mental health, so I use community
I
care.
figured it was a lot higher knowing you.
Well, they capped it at 70, and they're like, "Bro, that's all we got." That's that they're redoing it just for me. They're like, "This dude's an idiot." By the way, for those you watching and you see a little banter between me and Brett, I've known this man for forever. He was my boss in high school on the drum line, and now he is my boss again at the American Legion. So I've known this man a long time. So we have trust. Veterans have trust.
Can't get rid of the dude. Yep.
Right? Yeah. I'm like herpes or something. You know, it happens. But and so military, we can bond immediately because we're used to it. We're trauma bond. But if you bring a civilian into the mix, I'm not going to trust you at all. And why should I tell you my deepest, darkest secrets? Because in 2 weeks, you're going to go away.
Yeah. I ran into that. I was hanging out at the clubhouse at a golf course once, and we were having like a Friday night dinner night, and a couple of vets were in there. And one dude was a helicopter pilot from Vietnam, like American hero. Like he was a medevac pilot. And so all the utmost respect. But when us veterans get together, we start talking and we start sniffing around what we do. And I was like, hey, I was an intel guy. He's like, oh yeah, your dude is always wrong. And he said he was a pilot. I'm like, oh, your dude didn't do any work. Sitting on your tailbone the whole time.
Yeah, we can cuss on the show, by the way.
On and talking smack to each other. Well, there's a civilian at the other side of the table. And he's getting offended for both of us because we're not respecting each other.
Right.
We had to kind of like realize our audience there and kind of let them know. But yeah, us veterans, like any veteran, I meet veterans every day almost because I usually wear a shirt or a hat or something like that, or they do. And I always try to thank people for their service, genuinely thank them. We can bond in a grocery store line over a couple of quick phrases of basically how much did your life suck while you served and what did you learn from it? And how much better of a human being has it made you since then? I mean, those couple of little leading questions, and you're best friends by the time the cash register rings up your total.
Yeah.
And it's not the same in the civilian world, so it's nice to have that brotherhood and that fellowship that you can count on.
I think the other part to that too is when you're dealing with a civilian therapist, especially at the VA, like you said, where it's a high turnover rate. When you're talking to them, you get that look on their face like they don't know whether you're full of shit or, you almost feel like you have to convince them that this stuff happened because they can't, relate to it. They can't see it. They don't understand it. They don't know the trials of having to get up and go shit in a barrel at 3 a.m, after you walked a quarter mile to get to the barrel. They just
try to remember which one's the piss bottle and which one's got the apple juice in it.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, memories.
Hey, Marine, come here. Taste this for me.
Yep. Yeah. And we would because we're
you would. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we found where the fire was. We sent y'all out there and said, hey, go find some bullets.
Yeah.
We're on it, baby. We're on it.
Back to the VA. They are a broken system, but it is the only government system we have to support veterans. I wish they would learn a little quicker, and even the DoD didn't learn quick enough. It took us till 2006, 2007 before we realized that DoD can't research, know, and manage everything. You have to start bringing in contractors. You have to start partnering with educational facilities on grants to do some research projects for you, and you have to build this government, industry, education triad to really move and understand things. Because the fact of the matter is anything with bureaucracy behind it's going to be slow and it's probably going to be wrong. at least the first 5 or 6 iterations before it gets right. Same with the VA, and I wish they would partner with some nonprofits for the manpower and support. I mean, VA can process the paperwork like no other and do the bureaucratic loops, but when it comes to truly helping the veteran beyond the paycheck, that I wish they would pull in more nonprofits and kind of focus things and be that knowledge repository of like, oh, you've got this issue or this desire, this goal in life. You want to start your own business? Here's some nonprofits that are going to educate you, mentor you, train you, and everything else. I think that'd be a great benefit to the VA, not to do away with it or anything, just, hey, encourage them to partner with some of our nonprofits and be a resource library to people.
You know, we talk about this and it's like a double-edged sword, because in that new big beautiful bill that President Trump has created, one of the things in that is funding for the VA to work with HUD to help with homeless veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they would have done better with finding a nonprofit. I really do.
Well, the VA already uses a program that's called HUD VASH. And it's similar to, the HUD system.
Mm-hmm.
But because I've had to deal with them a lot, Austin, and there's several companies here in the Southeast, Austin Welks, that deals with veterans. That is a nonprofit that needs some fixing.
Yeah.
But in order to even get this on the radar of the government, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You got to reach out to your local congressman, your senator, and tell them, because I'm going to be honest, they're not thinking, mate, what can I do to improve the VA right now? No, they got more shit to do.
Yeah, and I've helped a couple of vets that have gone through HUD VASH and a few other things. And it seems like the ones that need the most help are the ones with the most complex cases. Some severe PTSD, some psychological imbalance. Like, it's not just a dude that you can write a check to and put a roof over his head and walk away from. It's someone who's going to need enduring, treatment and engagement, and that takes a lot. Like, it's going to take your American Legion post around the corner to send somebody by once a week to sit down and play a game of chess and have some food with you. It's going to take Bud Hash to put a roof over your head. It's going to take another nonprofit to put groceries on your table, and it's almost like we need like nonprofit case managers at this point to walk some of these hard cases through. A lot of these hard cases, they end up with an alcohol or a drug addiction or something else. We understand more about this now psychologically than we ever have between PTSD and alcoholic dependencies. We shouldn't be turning our backs on people just because they're drunk in the gutter. Like, we should identify that same way we do for any conflict or military operation. We look at all the variables and see what the problem is. What's our goal? Success on the other end of the breach. And we figure out a nice, safe way to get there with all the team intact. We're doing that with veterans right now.
That's the tough spot is the symptoms. You can build a house and throw a veteran under a roof, or any homeless person that, is out there on the streets, and put them under a roof. But if you don't fix why they were homeless to begin with, they're going to end up homeless again.
And, a lot of these nonprofits try to focus on, well, let's work on the symptoms, and they don't work on the illness.
Yeah.
Well, you can, okay, fine. You can fix a symptom. Me personally, I'm an open book with my mental health. I am what's called dual diagnostic PTSD. I have substance abuse, or had, I'm still an alcoholic, 4 years sober, but so I had a substance abuse and severe PTSD, and they tried to treat the alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
But every time that I would just work on that, I'd go back out drinking. It wasn't until somebody grabbed a hold of me and said, hey, we need to work on you. And I was lucky that it was a nonprofit that's here in the upstate that started the whole thing. But not everybody's that lucky. And, and mental health is the thing, and we've got to bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, I think that's, and in the other things that you do, Brett, I think you could probably see this as well. It's not just a veteran problem. It really isn't. I know that's where we say it is, but you take the people that have been trafficked, that you experience or you come across. I'm not sure what role you play in it, but their trauma is real similar to, a veteran. The triggers may be different, and the symptoms may be a little bit different. but it all resonates from the same thing, and that's trauma.
Yep.
So it's not like this has to be just a veteran government problem. There's enough mental health problems in America from non-veterans, from whether sexual assaults, to trafficking, to kidnapping. I mean, you name it. In America, there's trauma at every corner.
Well, and the stigma of sexual assault is real. I'm not going to name names, but I got a phone call last night from one of my Marines, and I just found out that they were sexually assaulted twice in 2003, and didn't tell me a single thing about it until yesterday. And the reason that they said that they didn't say anything about it is I was busy dealing with another rape.
Yeah. And it's not just the severely troubled too. The reason why I work with the association I work with is even like quality, stable, awesome Americans who separate out. It's not always easy to get that job. I actually played the market for a little bit and floated my resume to a couple companies where I knew I was overqualified for the position and experience.
Mm-hmm.
But because I didn't have the matching college degree and the matching civilian walk of life, I wouldn't even make it past the recruiters. I had to have a network of somebody on the inside who would pull my resume out specifically, put it at the top of the pile, and then I'd get the job. In the military, and I think it was Sergeant Major of the Army Daly, who started the COOL program in credentialing. And even when we had the Army of 25, I think it was, where we were trying to get college credentials for military service. That stuff never really panned out. So like when I get out of the Army and I say, I had 20 years of leading troops, I had 20 years of being an intel analyst, I had 20 years of getting shot at and shooting back and making it home. Like no recruiter at a corporation is going to know what that means when we're looking for, a project floor manager on a factory floor, if we're looking for a financial manager for financial crimes unit or anything like that. So the burden almost goes back to the military. Like, okay, now on top of your 20-hour days and deployments and everything else, now you've also got to go to school and get a college degree just so you look like everyone else. You've also got to go get these certifications so you look like everyone else, so that when you finish that 20 or 30-year career, you look like everyone else and you can get that matching career without having to like rely on your network. So we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot that way as well. And I kind of wish the civilian market, and that's what my association does. We provide tests to accredit people in their intel analysis. Can you legally, ethically, critically think, report right, all that stuff, things that I know you've been doing for your whole military career. And we're trying to give it a title that recruiters on the civilian side can look for. When you're hiring a business due diligence analyst, or if you're hiring a mergers and acquisition risk analyst or whatever you're doing, you look for someone that looks like this in the military. That's who you're looking for. Because a lot of the commercial side doesn't know what 20 years of being an intel analyst or an SF operator or whatever you Marine guys do. I mean, no one knows what that looks like. So that's what I'm trying to help on the backside too, to help people get the jobs they deserve once they come out. That's another thing. When I came out and I got my first job, they asked me what my hourly rate was as a consultant. And I remember going in 2001, $26 an hour seemed like a lot of money to me. So when I come out in 2021 with 20 years of experience of leading troops in combat, and I told this guy that my hourly rate was $26, he smiled really freaking big, and he put me on a contract really freaking quick.
Right.
It took me a while to realize, like, oh man, I might be a little bit more valuable than that. But everything the military did to help me transition and all that stuff, it still didn't really prepare me for like how to market and sell myself and all that.
Yeah.
SF community is doing a great job. They're going a little bit above and beyond the regular Army guys, but I mean, everyone deserves like some adequate training to move over. You know, even leading troops in combat for years and years, and I know exactly what an S1 is and S2, 3, and 4, and how to use them to my benefit and how they all work together. You walk into a commercial space, like, do you know what all goes into HR? Do you know what your IT group is actually responsible for? Like, what is this comptroller dude that over in the corner? You don't really know any of this, and so that luckily we have internships now that we can do where we can go into companies and start learning this stuff. But it's almost a whole nother language, and people always make fun of us vets because we have our own acronym soup that we talk in and we run together and stuff like that. But on the commercial side, it's almost as bad too. If you're going to do an equal or higher, responsibility in a corporate environment, there's a lot of corporate jargon out there that we just never got exposed to. But essentially, it kind of means the same thing.
And I think the biggest thing about vets, because when as soon as you said $26 an hour, it made me smile because I thought the same thing. We're not taught our value as an individual.
No.
We're taught our value as a team, which is great, and that's what we need there. But nobody transitions you and teaches you how to be an individual, how to be a civilian, how to evaluate yourself, and that's something that's missing.
Well, it's kind of ironic, right? The beginning stages of a soldier's career, you are looked at as an investment. You are looked at how much money am I going to spend on training and how much work and everything do I have to get out of you to make it worth what I spent into you. And I know this because right there towards the end of my career, there was a period where if they hadn't served 18 months, you couldn't chapter them, not for height and weight, not for PT test, none of that stuff. You had to do something criminal to get chaptered under 18 months. And I think that they don't look at the investment that they got out of you for 20 years, right? 15 years, whatever you served, right? Why isn't there a way that they could say, okay, the last 6 months of your career, you're pulled away from the units and you are put in a weekly, every other day class. Maybe you have to do, post staff duties or whatever. But for the most part, you are getting these classes that we're talking about right now.
They're doing a lot better at that. And USASOC, it's one of the reasons why I want to go back to the third group and retire there. USASOC almost mandates it. Your last 12 months, you might have a job or a project you're working on, but your focus is separation retirement. That's for the careerist.
Yeah.
Now for the mid-careerist who's getting out at 8 or 12 years or something like that, they don't necessarily get that year because they're still running their platoon sergeant or squad leader duties.
Yeah.
So they are trying to do better with that. But then even when I was going through the process, medically, you're supposed to start that process 2 years out.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that until I went through SFL TAP at like 10 months out. And it's just like small print right there. Oh, all your medical stuff should have been started 24 months before separation. And I'm sorry, especially for a single termer at 3 to 4 years, like really, they're not going to have 24 months to start separating. Nope. A first termer is not even going to get 12 months to start separating. They're going to get, 6 weeks of staff duty and class time they got to do. And that's about it. So we're not really staffed well for a proper overage of people to where we can have people just kind of move and transition like that. I mean, we've got the warrior transition battalions now for people medically going through stuff.
Yep.
But for all the rest of the soldiers, it's usually like a very short SFL TAP class, a couple things. And when I went to the entrepreneur class, I was in there with first termers all the way up through careers and everything else. And the entrepreneur class was how do you make a business card and how do you get your contractor license to hammer 2x4s?
Right.
Like I'm trying to start an entrepreneur business. It's going to turn into a multi-million-dollar, career field before too long.
Yeah.
I didn't get talked to about what a marketing or sales team and stuff like that is. And not that everyone needs to know it, but that might be a spot where some of our nonprofits can step in and offer those classes up to people.
Yeah. For me, I started my own business when I got out too. It wasn't because I had planned on it. It was because I picked a awesome place to retire and a shitty place to find a job. So, I created a business so I could have a job. And I opened a trucking company. And there is some great benefits that the military did for veterans, especially getting their CDL. The part that I wish that they would do is spend a little bit more time in those fields and giving you better training, right? So if you're going to be a truck driver, they'll give you waivers to go get your CDL. But do they really prepare you for what it takes to be a truck driver? The regulations, the harder living, just there's a lot of things to it that you're not going to learn in college, because when you're going through school, they give you the same answer for everything. Oh, you'll learn that when you get to your first company. You'll learn that when you get to your first company. They're just teaching you to pass a test. And
Were either of y'all informed about Chapter 35 benefits by anyone in the military?
No. I had to find out on my own.
Neither was I. It was a buddy of mine that called me up and said, "Hey, make sure you look into Chapter 35. If you get your 100%, it like all your dependents are going to go to school and get paid for it." Yep. Like no one in the Army told me that. And I used to make this joke when I was in the Army. Soldiers come up to me and ask me questions about separating from the Army and what do they do here and there. And I was like, unfortunately, the only people who know how to get out of the Army are the people who are out of the Army. It's like,
right.
It's we're not really capturing those lessons as big as we make ourselves on AARs and capturing lessons learned and all that stuff. We're not really doing it for the whole transition process. I'm glad I learned about Chapter 35, but then state benefits too. I didn't really learn about state benefits until I took it upon myself to do some research to figure out where was a good place to retire. And so South Carolina is where I grew up. So I started looking in South Carolina. I found out that, in South Carolina, 100% disabled veterans get free state tuition. Like your kids, the state tuition is waived. You get free or tax waivers on your primary residence, tax waivers on 2 cars. Like South Carolina is becoming a very good state to live in as a disabled veteran. Mm-hmm. That's all stuff I had to go out and find on my own. There wasn't anyone to really tell me about it or even to mention hey, you might want to look into this or you might want to go to that. Facebook, groups and Reddit forums. I mean, you start diving down those things constantly. And it's kind of funny because the whole military career, you train yourself not to listen to the barracks lawyer. You listen to the barracks lawyer for the first couple years in the Army, and then that dude gets you in a lot of trouble, and then you never listen to that dude again.
Yep.
But then on the whole transition process, you're looking for that civilian court lawyer, whatever you want to call him, and find out what it is on the outside you need to know about. But yeah, we do a terrible job at educating our vets on what's really beneficial to them on the outside.
Yeah, and a lot of that I think comes from that's just not it's not their mission. They want to keep you mission focused on the military mission as long as they can possibly keep you.
Yeah.
I was the last deployment that we were in, my commander was trying to force me to go. I would have had 3 months to get out of the military if I did the whole deployment with them. Yeah. And luckily, Obama changed the amount of people that could go and it forced them to have to start cutting leaders. But I had my bags in the container and it was sealed and getting ready to be railheaded to the port. And we had to unseal it, and a few of us had to pull our bags back out and everything else. But it's because they just want experience. They want people that are trained, experienced, and take you with you. They don't care what happens to you after you get out.
There's a good movie that I try to tell people to watch. It came out a while back. It's called Stop Loss. Mm-hmm. Go watch that movie. Dude, Brett, check it out. It's good. But it's about that time frame, our time frame, where they were stop loss to people. And it does a really good job of talking about how it mentally screwed with people. It's based on a true story, but it does a good job.
Yeah. I think this is an opportunity for leaders to really show their worth too. Because when I was at an EOD unit and I was had some family issues going on and everything else, and I needed to stay home for medical, but they had a deployment coming up and they really wanted my expertise to help them out. I had good leaders that could work with me to find a balance point where I could go out and I could help them for a little bit. I could train someone up. I could, set them on the best path for success. But then my family was the priority. And so when I said, hey, the family's gone, I got to get back to the States, they let me. I think leadership needs to get more involved and understand that balance point too. Because honestly, if you just drag someone kicking and screaming into a combat zone, it doesn't matter how much experience they have. They're not going to be performing at their best. They're going to be focused back home. And so maybe in the special ops community, we take it ourselves. You're always training your replacement. And I used to tell my soldiers this all the time. I'm going to pour everything into you because when I retire, I want to walk away and know it's in good hands. And I can't stick around forever and keep doing this job till I think it's going to be done the way I think it's going to be done. I just got to trust you guys to do it right. So I was always training my replacement every job I had because eventually I wanted to retire and get on out of there. And good leadership along the way gave me some opportunities and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no system in place to make sure that soldiers get taken care of. It's where leaders are going to have to step in and find that opportunity to take care of them.
And here's a question that I've had since both of you have had SF and spook experience. What do you guys think about all of these big podcasters from the SF world coming out? And now they're lying about their rank, and then they're lying about stuff.
Yeah.
What do you, Brett, I'll go with you. What do you think about that crap?
I grew up in a community where if you have to say it, they don't need to know it. If they already know it, you don't need to say it. So that's kind of always, I'll give the couple secret handshakes to start a conversation off, and then I know where to stop if I need to say things, and they probably don't need to know it.
Well, I mean, on top of that, I mean, being on that side, you're taught how to avoid bringing those things up in conversations, right? You can lead conversations in a direction that you want it to go. And if you feel the need that you have to lead the conversation down into that road, well, you're probably not telling the full truth to begin with anyways. Yeah. Quiet professionals are exactly that. They're quiet professionals. They keep the conversations focused on what they want the conversation to be focused on and away from those other things.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I never thought about this while I was a leader in the military. But, we back in those days, the big thing was sergeant's time, right? Thursdays was training time. You get a little bit of family time, you get out of there early and so forth, right? But I never thought about one of the things that would fall under sergeant's time is training your troops for getting out. Having NCOs that either brought in some ACAP people just to talk about it during sergeant's time, or went and got some training yourself so that you could lead your troops that have made that decision to exit. And I don't know why I never thought about that. I mean, I guess mission focus, we've got to prepare for NBC training or whatever. I don't know. But that is something as a leader that we forget, that, you're obligated to take care of that troop till the time that he gets out, not just till the time you're done using him.
Yeah. Back to the soft and what to say thing. I know a lot of units have a process for if someone's got something they want to write about and it's worth writing about, you can submit your materials back to the unit and get it reviewed by the S2 and PAO and everyone else. And there's some great books that have come out. One of which is an old comrade of mine, Jeff Teagues, wrote one through the Bible, the Battlefield and Back. Or no, it's called Where Have All the Heroes Gone, from the Bible, Battlefield and Back. And it's a fantastic book, and he talks about his time and his units, and he got permission to talk about this stuff. So I appreciate him being candid about it. But what he does, he talks about who it made him. And the whole time I'm reading through this book, I'm like cheering him on, like, yeah, this is everything I wish I could say, and like everything I want to advertise. I'm glad that someone stepped up and said it for the rest of us. So I do appreciate when some people get out there and with the right permissions and channels say a lot of things that need to be said, and take on a lot of the fights that need to be fought. I'm perfectly happy being back in the shadows, working in the background, but I'm really glad we got those individuals out there that are out in the limelight saying what needs to be said. So. Yeah.
The other part too that you don't see on the regular side of the Army, all the soft communities have their own associations. You got the Night Stalker Association, the Rangers Association. I'm not sure what SF association is called, but I'm sure they have one that does amazing jobs, taking care of their wounded and taking care of their members. But there is nothing like that really on the Army side that is designed. And I get it, the soft community is the smallest community out there, but it would still be nice to have something like that.
It's on the Marine Corps side too. We've got our SF organizations and the MARSOC organizations, and they take care of the small communities. And great, EOD, we've got our own little thing, whatever. But the units that I was deployed with, some of them no longer exist. So how are you gonna?
Yeah, we've got several on the soft side. In fact, I went through a great program with my wife at the time, where we did a gangling block treatment for PTSD, and it was completely funded by 3 different nonprofits. But they flew us down to Florida. They gave us the treatment. They gave us some coaching and mentoring, everything else, completely funded. And we got to hang out with lots of people. honestly, the biggest fellowship I find now is you start seeing all these signal chats start popping up, and, groups. I know Rangers have one, each SF group's got one. It's, former members of the association and stuff like that. And it's almost back down to just like the grassroots of connecting people, the young bucks with the old graybeards, and a simple little chat and getting them to connect. And again, that's why I wanted to find something local to my region here in upstate South Carolina, where the nearest base we have is Relaxing Jackson. So it's not a huge military presence up around here. We do have an active National Guard in the area, which is pretty cool. I was so happy when I came back home to the upstate here and I saw a dude in uniform walking around. I was like, wow, I did not expect that. And I figured he's a recruiter, but he was a National Guardist. And then when my kids were in high school, I found out one of their classmates, her dad was currently deployed. And so I dug in a little bit and I found this whole family here where the whole unit was deployed. And I found a family of a deployed soldier that my family got to just kind of like wrap our arms around and hang out with and take care of and find those resources for them. And made lifelong friends out of this family that we hang out with now. But yeah, it's just getting back into your community and finding those places where we can connect. And it's almost like you can feel the veteran bubble when you go out and you go to a concert in the square or whatever it is. You start seeing like this gravitational pull of all of these like overweight, gray bearded, rough looking Maldoons just kind of start circling. And lo and behold, most of them probably don't actually know each other. We just kind of snip each other out in a crowd and start. So,
you could tell it. You could tell by people's demeanor how they, and I'm not talking about they went to combat and they're looking over their shoulder. I'm just saying there's a military presence to people. They're aware of their surroundings, the way they walk, the way they talk. Hell, most people that serve 20 years still march when they walk, and they don't.
I can almost tell you what rank you were by how you walk. Like, because a lot of your upper levels, you're gonna have hands behind your back like you're inspected, and I look and I see that every single time. I'll be like, "Hey, what rank were you, First Sergeant?"
Yeah. And if you were an officer, you carry your hand like this.
That's right.
You drink your whiskey with it.
I love it.
It is always a great time, and the military people, like you said earlier, somebody was offended the way you were talking with each other, but people just don't understand. That's just the way we are. We give each other shit all the time about their career and everything else. Don't let anybody else do it. But, from within our communities, it's a love to hate. I'm not sure where Space Force is going to fit in with all this, but
I want to stay in the veteran community long enough to where I can ask where the alien touched him. And then I'll get out. I'm done. I'm good. I'm okay. But that's why they won't let Marines be in the Space Force. We try to kill them or fuck them. What? No.
Both.
I get the one.
Not necessarily in that order either.
I got the one F-bomb and I saved it towards the end. So.
There you go, man. There you go.
So this last little bit that we have, Brett, and Donald, I didn't bring this up to you, but I don't know if you're cool with it or not. Would you be willing to do like a little 10-minute what to look out for while you're in a crowd for trafficking? Would that be okay with you, or?
Yeah, and I'm not a pro at it, so I'll preface everything with there are people way better than I am. I've seen it before, and there's a lot of girls that get trafficked that are okay with it. Like they've reached the point in their life in their career where they do it. I've sat in hotels down in Florida and up in DC where I see a young lady walk in and she's confident, got everything going on, and she does her time there and she walks out. And those are usually the gals who are there by choice. How they got in the lifestyle, it remains to be seen. But when you have the young ladies who are glued to someone's side, and there's little hand signals that you can see when they wave behind their back and stuff like that. The problem is most of these girls don't know that. Most of these girls will give you any random hand signal they can. They might just like not make eye contact and stuff like that. Same thing with staying alert, staying alive. I mean, if you've gone on a patrol and you learn like how do you find someone that's got a IED under their vest, like, well, I mean, sure, if you see a wire, that's a dead giveaway. But there's 1,000 other things that we start passively looking for to see before we even see the wire. What's their posture? What's their demeanor? Is that person paired up with a comparable other person in a crowd? If you see a 13-year-old girl and an 80-year-old man, like, is that could be granddaddy? Absolutely. But is it? Like, just give it a second look and kind of look around. But then also just, you don't want to make things worse just by trying to be the hero. Just trying to barge in and play the Red Rover game and separate two people holding hands is not always the best way to end a fair or a carnival. But just kind of watch and be observant. Best resource you can have at all is what to do if you do see something. Like, do you know the numbers for your local SLED agencies? Do you know most every police precinct has a internet crimes against children division? Do you know their phone number? You see on sides of trucks now, they've got Truckers Against Trafficking, and there's a 1-800 number you can use. Familiarize yourself with these resources. Just like before we ever go on patrol, we know the 10-digit grid coordinate to our medevac, pickup. We know the frequency for our alternate comms. Like, we learn all these things before we go out. It's the same thing when we go out to a carnival fair where we might run into this stuff. Do you know what to do if you see something? Also, the stigma that it's always obvious, it's someone who's been abducted and they've just been beaten, abused, and all that stuff. It's not always that. A lot of times it's the young Christian girl with someone close to their family that just starts manipulating them, and it's a psychological breakdown process of getting them to do things that they're not comfortable with. And then there's a breaking point where they get them to do something that they would never have done. They walk them into a hotel and there's 3-4 guys there, and significant activities happen with those 3-4 guys, and it gets put on video, and that video gets held up in front of this young girl's face, and she's still going to church and she's still going to school, but she can't open her mouth because she's afraid that her parents are going to see that video one day. And so she presents as a normal citizen in your society, but she's got an altered life that she's living because someone has basically blackmailed and manipulated her. And once they kind of get to that point, the nonprofit that I work with a lot is called Skull Games. They work. It comes out of a book by a pimp who wrote down basically how to be a pimp. And in there he says, pimping's not a game of the flesh; it's a game of the skull. It's a mental game, and so that's why the nonprofit I work with for identify and interdict is called Skull Games, because we understand that it's people don't wear a big scarlet letter A because they're being abused and trafficked. You got to look for those indicators, and honestly, it's the thing that caught me off guard is when they told me it's as easy to order a girl for sex as it is a pizza. And I started looking, I was like, really? Like, I mean, a pizza's really easy to order these days. And sure enough, you go on Facebook Marketplace, you don't have to scroll too far before you find someone selling a dress or a hair or, something like that. But, if you're selling a dress, why is there a gal in the dress? Like, why is it a full life picture? They're not selling the dress, they're selling something else in the picture. Yeah. They use little emoticons now. The little white bunny means young white chick, and the cash bag means I'm trafficked, or the crown means I have a pimp. They use emojis to identify trafficking, and so that's what our task force does. And fortunately, we have a lot of recovered gals that help us identify stuff like that, because it's takes one to know one kind of mentality. Yeah, if you're out in the groups or just scrolling through social media, and you get your spidey sense kicking back in, like we were trained and honed to have that spidey sense. Like, don't ignore it. Give it a second look and see, like, is this really an accurate situation of what it presents? Because I almost guarantee you it is happening right in front of your face. Well, we just haven't been looking for it, because again, after 20 years going to serve other countries, I completely neglected how. I don't want to say America's a bad place now, but I neglected how much dirty stuff was started going on in America. Right. And so when I came home, I tried to turn off all my spidey sense. I tried to turn off all my awareness. But for me to make this world a better place in my own hometown, I got to turn it back on, and I got to be aware when I go to church, when I'm walking through the school halls, when I'm going to teacher meetings, stuff like that. When I go to carnivals, I look around. I try to identify possible scenarios that maybe aren't jiving with logic, and I give it a second or third look. And if it's really not jiving, I've got some resources that I can call upon to do it the right way. Because the last thing we want is some vigilante just coming in and beating the hell out of some dude who's just having a good day with his granddaughter. Because it makes it harder for the rest of us to do anything when we do it the wrong way. There's absolutely authorities around you. There's, uniformed guards, and no matter how much, experience and skill I had in negotiation tactics with terrorists, it's somebody else's job now. I need to go find that uniformed guard and let him maximize his use in his, authority matrix. So, quick down and dirty it probably is happening in front of you, whether it be on your social media threads or at the local fair or the local gathering. You probably already know what to look for because we've been trained our whole lives to look for things that don't make sense because somebody's up to something, and just give it a second or third look, apply some logic to it, and then have some resources behind your back to handle it the proper way to get that girl good help. Because if you handle it improperly, chances are that girl's going to be right back in some other den, like as soon as you turn your back. You need to handle it the proper way with proper trained people and resources to get them the help they need. So.
You're absolutely right.
A quick question. So is that book you talk where Skull Games came from? Is that the book by Iceberg Slim?
I believe that might be the author. I have to look at it.
So, okay, I've read his book. I can't remember what it's called, but look for author Iceberg Slim and read his book.
I think it was like 42 Laws of Pimping or something like that was authored in there. It's disgusting how scientific it's broken down.
I mean, he tells you exactly how to break somebody. Mm-hmm. And he says in the book, and I quote, "Whip them and then give them Tylenol."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then simple.
You've got your it's called forget the language. It's called your top bitch that runs it. Like it is literally the good cop, bad cop mentality of breaking someone. Like you have someone break them, and then you're the good guy that takes care of them. Yep. You always remind them like, oh, you never have it so good as you are with me. No one's going to take you back. I'm the only one that's going to love you. And I was telling a really good friend the other night that I try passionately to make sure my children know they're loved. Even my grown boys on college campuses, I'll holler I love them like across the campus, because one of my children will never go a day in their life questioning whether they have love from a healthy source or not. And that's one of the number one things as a parent I can do is just make sure they're loved. And so many of us like we're scared to show affection, we're scared to show love. But honestly, like if you're a parent with kids, like show it. Don't ever hold it back, because our kids, if we reflect back on. Looking back on my parents and all the flaws I saw in them growing up, like I can only imagine what flaws my children see in me, no matter how good of a dad I try to be. And I try to remember that and just, shower them with love, be public and open about it. That way, no one can ever come in and try to take one of my children because they didn't feel loved. Because that's a huge reason why people get trafficked these days. Is it's too easy for a teacher or, a pastor or, someone's older brother to scoop in and start showing them what they are hungering for. They never knew they wanted just because they never got it. I can't remember the author of that book. It's disheartening to realize how scientifically he broke it down.
So the book is called, oddly enough, Pimp.
Yeah, good marketing.
Pimp by Iceberg Slim. It's called Pimp, the Story of My Life. Check it out.
Well, I think the other part too is everybody has a social image of what trafficking looks like. Mm-hmm. And I had a few guests on my other show that was trafficked, and it was done pretty scientifically, man. It started out with online conversations. He wasn't from the States, she was, and they were talking online. He then came to America. They met, they talked, and the whole 9 yards. He asked her to come to where his country is, and he paid for the flight over there and everything. And once she got over there, he took her passports, her driver's license, and she was allowed to come and go. It didn't matter. She could leave and walk through the town, but he made sure that he made his money off of her too. And she couldn't leave. There was nothing she could do. And that went on for a few years.
I caught it with my own little cousin. She was 12 years old, and fortunately, her mom let me know about it. But she had some messages in one of her social groups from a young man. Said he was from Texas. We're in South Carolina, so like she couldn't verify. She's 12. He said he was like 16, so it wasn't too bad. But then you can read the message traffic and you can see the grooming going on here. I think one of the things that we're lacking is just some quality education, be it our churches or schools or wherever. We need to educate some of our kids and our parents that this whole social media thing, like it is dangerous.
Yeah.
People get up in arms about the Second Amendment all day long, and they'll argue till they're blue in the face about what it meant to have a gun. I think everyone misses the point that our forefathers and their epic wisdom, they knew there was something more dangerous than guns, and it was information. The freedom of speech is the most powerful and the most dangerous thing we could ever have. And we're letting our children and family members just run rampant in this information environment that is social media with like no training wheels, no gun. Like, can you imagine sending a 12-year-old to the gun range with zero weapons training? It never happened.
No.
And how much training do we give our kids before we ever put a live round in a gun? Like, the 4 rules of marksmanship and weapons safety and all that stuff. My kids were cleaning guns as soon as they could break down a gun because I had guns around the house. Mm-hmm. We don't do any of that with social media. We don't educate any of our children or our parents on like, yeah, it seems fun to get likes and everything else, but honestly, those likes, it's feeding that dopamine hit that our young kids are getting. Like, oh, I showed a picture of my face, I'm getting lots of likes. Oh, I showed a picture of me in a bikini, I'm getting even more likes. What else do I need to do to get more likes? And people are capitalizing on this constantly. Yeah. The information environment is rampant these days, and it's not just our kids, our adults too. I mean, if you look back at the news these days and elections and everywhere else, and I'll try not to get on a massive soapbox like right towards the end of our podcast here, but the information environment is the most dangerous place we could ever do combat in. And the problem is most of us don't realize that we're doing combat in it. I mean, the more I look back at our forefathers, the more I'm just thoroughly impressed with the Constitution. They knew exactly what the most dangerous thing was, and they put it first. The second thing is when that first thing fails. So guns are for an illiterate society that has to defend themselves. If you got the right information and you're educated, then you've got a strong society. So anyways, I'll give that soapbox now, but we got to inform our kids and our families and everyone else what the social media thing is doing for everyone.
Well, think about where we get a lot of our information. PsyOps overseas comes from orphanages and villages and everything else. And, people going in there and playing with them, give them some candy or whatever. You'd be surprised the information that you get back. Worth way more than a Snickers bar, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't need $100,000 to buy a source if the source is a hungry little kid.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So where can people find you or your business or Skull Games or like
Skull Games is a great group, and that's just skullgames.io, I believe is their current one, or skullgames.com. If you're looking to give back to the community and do some counter-trafficking. Now, I don't want everyone to flood them because they've got a huge mission on their plate. But if you're serious about getting involved, they do great quarterly events where a bunch of volunteer hunters get together and use the internet to find and identify young girls and build dossier packets, and they work with law enforcement, and they help get these girls at least a choice in the next phase of their life. So that's Skull Games. For me personally, I run the Osmosis Association. If you're an intel analyst or an online investigator, check out the osmosisassociation.org. We are the association for people who use the internet to answer questions for their bosses. We do conferences, we do certifications, we do events, everything else. So you're welcome to look that one up. And if you're just in the neck of the woods of South Carolina and want to go riding, you can probably find me at American Legion Post 151 in Central South Carolina. Grab 2, 3, or 4 wheels, however many you got, come on down and we'll hang out. We'll have a couple drinks and we'll ride the hills together. So yeah, that's how you find me.
Awesome, man. Well, Brett, I appreciate you coming on, man. I there was several things I didn't even realize that you had said that I learned. So I guarantee you the average person out there can get a whole lot of good information from this. And again, I think one of the biggest things you said, don't go watching this video and running out and thinking now you can throw that cape on, because you're dealing with people's lives, not just yours. If you fail to separate them, it's hard telling what could happen to her once you're back out of her sight again.
Yeah, diving in the middle of a fight in a combat zone has different results than diving in the middle of a fight in the U.S. here. So just be aware of your surroundings and do the long-term right thing.
Leave it to the professionals, but if you really want to do something, to become the professional.
Yep. There you go.
Absolutely. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on, man. I had a great time. Brandon, I appreciate you joining us.
Brother.
Yeah.
It was a good episode and a good show. I hope everybody that listens to this can get something out of it and know that keep their eyes open. And if you're a veteran and you need help, there's organizations out there that can help you. If you're looking at getting into the intel side of the house, there's an organization there to help you get some training and get through it as well on the civilian side.
Also, if you're a veteran and music is your life, like Brett is.
Oh yeah, I left that out.
Well, I'm gonna want you back for another show. There's just a lot. You're an onion, and we're peeling the layers.
Yeah, it smelled like butt. Yeah, I got it.
You know, band camp, baby. I remember band camp. I went through SERE school before I left high school.
Yeah.
Oh,
I appreciate the time today, guys. It's been awesome chit-chatting and swapping some notes with each other.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Y'all take care, man. I hope y'all don't forget, don't let the day kick your ass. Kick the day's ass.
Yep, there you go.